Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our Compassionate Weekly Accountability Meeting. I am so grateful that you are here as usual. And if you're new here, again, welcome. And if you are a Self Worth Hub member, don't forget to say hello and interact for a chance to win our monthly gift card. Regardless, I am grateful that you are all here on a Sunday night or day, wherever you are joining from. So, if we don't know each other, I'm Karina Ibar Jacobs, licensed psychotherapist and coach, specializing in parentification, trauma, and complex trauma recovery. If you joined us a few lives ago, the conversation about grief and why you feel stuck and unable to move forward, this is part two of this series because grief is not about losing people. We actually grieve unmet needs, lost childhoods, and stolen innocence. Also, the safety that we never had. And we are doing part two per your request. And I will be on the lookout in the comments. So say hello wherever you are joining. I would love to hear from you. Okay, so today we're going a bit deeper or a continuation on a continuation of that live stream. So this live stream is for anyone who grew up in dysfunctional family dynamics where grief wasn't allowed, where you were told to pretty much suck it up, to not cry, to get over it. And it's for the ones who were too busy surviving the process and unable to identify what they're feeling, or if you were constantly running away from your emotions, I want you to take this opportunity to pace yourself, to be compassionate with yourself, and to give yourself the grace that you deserve. So today, I want to gently guide you through the next layer of healing. And that is how grief gets trapped in the body and how we can release it, not just through crying or talking, but through feeling. Let's unpack let's unpack the emotional physical connection and the importance of verbal ventilation and simple practices that you can begin today to gently invite your body and nervous system to heal. At any moment, please feel free to ask any questions. And let's jump into what happens when you don't get to grieve. This is something I witness often in my practice. When you are raised in a home where you had to be the emotional caretaker, or where your emotions were ignored or punished, you learned to suppress your pain and armor up. So you don't cry, you tighten your jaw, and you swallow your feelings a lot. And eventually, your body stores what your heart wasn't allowed to express. Please let me know if that resonates in the comments. Okay, so I want to talk about what this often leads to when we don't release these emotions. Often, this leads to chronic muscle tension. Many of my clients and members, they hold a lot of tension in their shoulders, digestive issues, a lot of headaches, unexplainable headaches, okay? And digestive issues like nausea, constipation, or gut sensitivity. There's also a lot of anxiety just below the surface that never really goes away. And sometimes we wonder why. And it's because we were hypervigilant growing up and in previous relationships. So maybe you feel emotionally numb also, or emotionally flooded with no warning. Hello, Loli. Welcome back. Hi. So, why does this happen? Why? Because grief needs to move. If it gets stuck, it turns inward into shame, into anxiety, even physical illness. And that is why we need more than just cognitive insight. We need embodied healing. We need to feel our way through it. And I have a lot of clients and wonderful members, some of them who are here. Hello, Rat Tokyo, Nat. Hi. It's wonderful to have you back. A lot of my wonderful members and clients are very cerebral. They even want to make sense of and rationalize a lot of their emotions and are very harsh on themselves. And this is what came up in our part 1 of this series about grief, because we want to make sense of it. Like, why is it that I cannot move forward? So we constantly judge ourselves. And I want to talk about the healing power of feeling, right? Not just crying. This is so important because I had to go through it myself. For instance, many people confuse feeling with emoting. But feeling is not always crying or yelling, for instance. Feeling means being present with your sensations without judgment. It means slowing down enough to notice what's happening inside of you, your breath, your tight shoulders, that lump in your throat, right? That tension that you feel, right? When we allow ourselves to feel, especially in a safe and compassionate environment, it creates space for those long stored emotions to rise to the surface and to be witnessed. And let me know if this resonates, please, in the comments. And here's the reality. When we suppress our emotions, especially grief, it shows up in the body. And I know because, for instance, I know many of my clients have digestive problems and chronic fatigue. And of course, first we want to rule out if there is a physical condition, right? So I would refer them to see their primary care provider because I am not a medical doctor. So in that area, we want to rule out if there are any other underlying conditions that may be causing these symptoms. However, from a trauma-informed perspective, more often than not, there's a lot of trapped emotions and a lot of repressed emotions that are trapped in the body and manifest into these symptoms of digestive problems, a lot of headaches. And the more we bring them to the surface, the more they allow themselves, many of my clients allow themselves to cry without judgment, to tap into their wounded inner child so that they can reparent themselves. Then we witness how these symptoms, they cease over time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does. Why? Because they haven't allowed themselves to be seen fully up until that point. Let me know if this resonates. Okay? Because these are often signs of unprocessed emotional tension. But when we begin to relax and surrender to the process of feeling, then we start to heal. And not just emotionally, but physically too. Something that I have shared in the past, and it's very vulnerable, but as a child who experienced, this is a trigger warning for all of you. I've gotten to the point of expressing this in public, but I was parentified. I also experienced childhood sexual abuse. And I recall getting a lot of asthma attacks. And the moment that I was taken away from that environment and processed these, my asthma just ceased. I haven't had an asthma attack as an adult until like years ago. And it was due to the the carpet that we were putting new carpets and it triggered a symptom. But I have to say it was aggravated and I had a lot of respiratory problems growing up. And and the research has shown that often people who experience adverse childhood experiences and trauma, they develop autoimmune disorders. So this is very common. This is based on research. And I love the famous book by Bessel Bander. I always mispronounce his last name. The book is The Body Keeps the Score. I love that book because it's quite enlightening when it comes to complex trauma and emotions trapped in the body. And I see a comment. Oh, hello, Satilda. Welcome back. That says, claps to coming out the other side or healing enough or just plainly progressing to betterment. Beautiful. Hi, Catherine. Hi, hello. Welcome back. Un abrazo. Says, hi, Cathy. Good evening, everyone. Hello. Okay. So, jumping into learning to feel step by step, right? If you have been shut down for a long time, this can be scary. So we take baby steps. So I'm not asking you here to jump from, not trusting anyone and not sharing, not even acknowledging yourself that you have these trapped emotions to now all of a sudden share. Just like I shared something very vulnerable a few minutes ago. Don't expect you to do that, right? However, one step at a time, I would invite you to embrace empowered vulnerability. Number one, I want you to start with breath. Breathe deeply and slowly into your belly. This helps shift your nervous system from fight, flight into a more grounded place. I have to say, I always teach my clients, and I do this myself, where I visualize. And when I am very tense, you will very likely see me looking a little bit bloated. And that is because I'm breathing, I'm doing like belly breaths, and then I hold it in there, almost like I'm housing all the tension, and I'm like, and then I release. And then I hum. Mm. And these are somatic techniques that may seem very simplistic, but that are helpful to identify what we are holding, our emotions, our trapped emotions, and also releasing, not just cognitively, but actually, you know, and giving it language and feeling it on and grounding ourselves to our body. Number two, I want you to name your body sensations. Where do you feel tightness or numb or hot or tingly? Sometimes we don't know and we think, oh, let me take a pill for the headache or where I feel this tension, but it's often emotions. Maybe analyze, take inventory of your previous conversations and the environment prior to you feeling this way. Is it a legitimate physical sensation because maybe you slept on the wrong side of the bed, so you have tension? Were you sitting a certain way? Or did you have some stressful interactions that led to you accumulating tension and therefore a headache eventually? So make sure that you are intentional and take inventory of how you feel and why you feel that way. Does that make sense? Okay. And number three, I want you to practice passive feeling. You don't need to cry to heal, but I want you to just notice what's happening and be with it. Don't judge it. A lot of us say, I'm sorry, right? When we're crying, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cry. Or, oh my gosh, I'm such a baby, or this. And it's like, no, why? Don't apologize for taking up space and for your emotions. This is all part of being human. Okay, let's see. Oops, my screen went a little bit black, and I hope that is not delayed. Don't you dare, internet lords. Number four, I want you to let your emotions unfold naturally. I know that this may sound redundant. I've been talking about emotions and allowing your emotions. It's a matter of allowing them to be. A lot of us are afraid to cry or to give in to the emotions that we perceive as negative. And grieving isn't something that you force, it is something that you allow. And that is why the process of reparenting ourselves and grieving, it's so important. And it takes a lot of patience and compassion. This is what I call the soft opening into grief, where you begin to gently turn toward the parts of yourself you used to run away from. And I want to give you an example because this is something that keeps coming up. I want to give you an example of a client. And of course, I'm modifying the details for the purpose of confidentiality. Um, this person, she basically let go of an ex that she used to hold on to that relationship, just accepting a lot of breadcrumbs. And she's like, oh, forget it. He's not worth my time. I let go of him. He's so stupid. What an a hole. So she thought she was fine and had moved on. And when you would ask her, how are you? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. I'm living my best life. Guess what? Ran into that ex at a place, right? At a restaurant. And what happened was unexpected, at least to her. Interacted with that person, was cordial, even though, even though there was anger that she had not metabolized and processed. What happened next? She was all fine throughout the interaction afterwards. Then it hit her the next day, a wave of grief. And thankfully, we had a session afterwards where she was telling me, I spent this morning crying incessantly. I couldn't control it. I thought I was over this person. I don't want him back. But oh boy, I didn't know I was going to cry. I didn't know how much it was going to hurt me after I saw this person. And I saw them and I was fine. And I said hello and we had a conversation like nothing happened. I wanted to show him that I'm fine. However, evidently, there were trapped emotions there because she had not fully grieved in detail that relationship and the impact of that relationship. It wasn't until she had that episode that led her to be in an emotional flashback. And she brought it up in session where we were navigating step by step what had transpired. You see, she violated her boundaries because the person said, like, oh, yeah, I think it was something along the lines of like, I love you. And automatically she said, I love you too. Or like, take care. She realized, like, why did I say that? It was an automatic response. And what happened? We worked on self compassion. We worked on the fact that evidently she needed to grieve the loss of the potential of that relationship. And apparently she had just moved on by distracting herself without allowing herself to grieve and to analyze how that relationship truly resembled the dynamics that she had experienced with her own father. It was basically an emotional flashback because this person used to be very nonchalant and not prioritize her, and yet she continued to show up. She was attempting to rewrite the script and to be chosen even though she's this powerhouse, beautiful, smart woman that deserves so much better. But this does not discriminate against anyone. Just wanted to give you a tangible example because it is something that comes up a lot within my sessions with a lot of my members, where we think that we have moved on. Why? Because we proceed to move on with our lives without necessarily identifying the impact and grieving the loss of the potential ideal dynamics that we thought we were going to have with this person, the outcome that we were hoping with this person. Because sometimes we feel ashamed, like, oh my gosh, I should have known better. So we don't allow ourselves to grieve. And I see Nat says, how do we manage if we stay in grief for long, long periods of time? Thank you for that question. The reality is that I know you may not like this answer, but there's no timeline. You see, what we want to make sure is that when you say staying in grief, it's important that we acknowledge that we are grieving and to be patient with ourselves and make sure that we're not debilitated by it. If we are debilitated by it, if you are, then that means that it would be important to seek professional support to move forward. Is it preventing you from living your life? Is it isolating you? If it's to that point, then it would be important to navigate this with a professional to also seek support within our community. However, the mere fact that we are grieving, ask yourself, what is coming up for me? What is it that I'm grieving? What relationship? What situation? What did I need that I can provide for myself now? So it would be important to ask yourself those questions and let me know if that answers your question. Okay, and thank you for that. And this is a good segue into speaking about some techniques to invite and enhance grieving. Okay, and these are some trauma informed ways to safely invite grief. Okay, I want you to find a quiet space and visualize yourself going back to a time when you felt abandoned or alone. Imagine holding your inner child with compassion and say the things that you needed to hear out loud or write them in a journal. Sometimes, and I know this may sound silly, but even verbal ventilation by yourself, write it down, do a voice note, identify it, and allow yourself to give language to that you are grieving. How do you feel? Why am I recalling this time where I felt abandoned or let down? Another way is like watch a movie or listen to music that evokes emotion and let it be the spark that brings feelings to the surface, right? Tell yourself it's okay to feel this way. I don't have to rush this. I am allowed to be with my pain. Okay? Verbally share your story with someone who feels safe, even if it's one person. And if you're a Self Worth Hub member, hello, hello, some of you here, I would invite you to tap into your accountability partner or find a new one, post it in our community within the app. Okay. This is called verbal ventilation, and it is powerful. Even the exercise of identifying it and putting it out there, of course, in a safe environment, it's powerful because words metabolize pain. When someone listens with empathy, it helps us reconnect with our true selves. And we often underestimate that. We want to isolate when we are grieving, we feel pain or shame. So it is important to share with a trusted person, even if it's one. Okay. And something that I want to say is that one of the most overlooked parts of grief is how it impacts our ability to connect. Many trauma survivors fear intimacy, and not because we don't want love, evidently, but because we fear being seen in our vulnerability. It's something I witness a lot with my members and clients so often. So verbal ventilation helps here too. When we talk freely without editing or apologizing about our pain, we begin to build intimacy, not just with others, but even within ourselves. And that is why I say grief is not the opposite of connection, it is the path to it, right? We don't want to trauma bond, evidently. We want to connect with people that could understand, people that are reliable. And here's the reality that might might sting, right? But also heal. And it is that you do not need to wait for someone else to validate your grief for it to be real. It's enough for you to validate your pain, even if no one else saw it, even if no one else apologizes for it. But you having your own back, that is so important. I want to pause and see if anyone has a question or need further clarification. I'm on the lookout since we are approaching the end of our live stream. Okay. And I'll be on the lookout. But for now, let's try something together. Okay. If that's okay and if it feels safe, I want you to close your eyes right now, if that's okay with all of you. And I want you to breathe in slowly for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Bring to mind a moment where you left or you felt unseen, alone, or overwhelmed as a child, or earlier in your life. I want you to picture your adult self walking into that moment. Visualize this. What does your inner child need to hear in this moment? Say it out loud or whisper it to them and let it be true, simple, and kind. Maybe that is, I believe you. It's okay. It's okay. It makes sense you feel this way. As simple as that. And with this remembering and this exercise, you may feel a lump in your throat, and that's okay. And that's your body beginning to trust you again. So please stay with it. Don't judge it. Before we go, since I don't see any questions or any more questions, I want to emphasize again that grief is not weakness. You're not stuck, but it is not something that you want to rush through. It is a birth canal into a more whole and more self connected you. And the more we allow ourselves to grieve what we never got, then the more we open ourselves up to receive that we deserve. Again, take your time. And of course, if you need more support, our Self Worth Hub community is a space where we grieve, we grow, and we heal together, gently at your pace, and with tools that are practical and that help you come back to yourself. Because at the end of the day, this is the point, to remember who you are. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight. And remember that you're not broken ever. You are grieving, and grief, when held with love, becomes one of the most sacred forms of healing. I cannot emphasize this enough. So let's see if you have any questions or comments. If not, I will see you next Sunday for our next Compassionate Weekly Accountability meeting. And until then, I want you to be kind to yourself and your nervous system. Please keep coming home to yourself. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And as usual, see you on Sunday. Take care. And please remember your resilience. So, thank you, everyone, for being here. If you are new, subscribe so that you do not miss any of our live streams and any of our videos. All right. Take care, everyone. Good night. Thank you.